Margaret Walsh built her life in that house. 42 years of memories. 2 children raised. A husband buried. And in less than 6 months, her son took it all away. This is the story of how a mother's love was repaid with betrayal, how a family home became a weapon, and how one phone call changed everything. Because sometimes, the people who owe you everything are the first ones to take it all. October 2023. Portland, Oregon. Margaret Walsh was 68 years old when her husband died. 43 years of marriage ended on a Tuesday afternoon. Heart attack. Sudden. The kind that doesn't give you time to say goodbye. The funeral was beautiful. Her son Thomas brought his family from Seattle. Her daughter Emily flew in from Boston. The house was full of people who said the right things. "We're here for you. Anything you need. You're not alone." But by the following Monday, the house was empty again. Just Margaret. And the silence. The house on Laurel Street was a modest 2-story craftsman. 3 bedrooms, original hardwood floors, a garden Margaret had tended for decades. Nothing remarkable to most people. But to Margaret, it was everything. She and David had bought it in 1981. 28 years old and pregnant with Thomas. The down payment had taken every dollar they'd saved. The mortgage had taken 25 years to pay off. Every room had a memory. The kitchen where she'd taught Emily to bake. The living room where Thomas took his first steps. The master bedroom where David had held her hand the night her mother died. The house wasn't just wood and walls. It was her life. But houses like that, paid off, in good neighborhoods, they're worth money now. A lot of money. And some people noticed. 3 weeks after the funeral, Thomas came back. Without his wife, Jessica, this time. Just him. "Mom, we need to talk about your situation." Margaret was in the garden. October roses. David's favorite. "My situation?" She didn't look up from the pruning shears. "This house, Mom. It's too much for you. Dad did all the maintenance, the yard work. You can't manage this alone." "I've been managing just fine." "For 3 weeks." Thomas sat on the porch steps. "But winter's coming. What happens when the furnace breaks? When you need to shovel the driveway? When something goes wrong and I'm 3 hours away?" Margaret set down the shears, looked at her son. 40 years old, handsome, successful, worried, or something that looked like worried. "I'll hire someone. Your father left me comfortable. I'm not helpless, Thomas. I know you're not helpless." His voice softened. "But you're alone. And this house, it's full of him, every room. Don't you think it might be easier somewhere, smaller, somewhere you could start fresh?" "I don't want to start fresh. I want to stay in my home." Thomas was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Okay, but promise me you'll think about it. That's all I ask," Margaret promised. Because that's what mothers do. What she didn't know was that Thomas had already thought about it. A lot. He'd thought about it enough to get the house appraised. $850,000. In a market where Portland real estate only went up. He'd thought about it enough to calculate his inheritance. Split with Emily, that was over $400,000 each. And he'd thought about it enough to tell Jessica. "$400,000? Jessica had said. They were in bed. Seattle. The night after Thomas visited his mother. "If she sells now, the market's good. And if she doesn't sell, then we wait. Inherit eventually." Eventually, Jessica turned on her side, looked at her husband. "Your mom's 68 and healthy. Eventually could be 20 years. "I know. 20 years, Thomas. Our kids will be in college. We'll be in our 60s. That money could change our lives now, not in 20 years. Thomas didn't answer. But Jessica saw something in his silence, something she could work with. "She's alone in that big house," Jessica continued. "Isolated. What if something happens? What if she falls? Has a stroke? Who finds her? Em and I check on her. We call You're 3 hours away. Emily's across the country. Your mom needs to be somewhere safe, somewhere with people around, somewhere supervised. The word hung in the air. You mean a nursing home? In a senior community? Assisted living? She'd have friends, activities, medical staff if she needs help. And she could sell the house, invest the money, live comfortably. She won't do it. She will, if you help her see it's the right choice. Thomas looked at his wife. Jessica was good at this, convincing people, reframing problems. She worked in marketing. Persuasion was her job. I'm not forcing my mother out of her home. Of course not. Jessica kissed his shoulder. You're helping her make a difficult decision. That's what good sons do. And Thomas wanted to be a good son. He really did. He also wanted $400,000. The visits started small. November. Thomas came by twice, pointed out things Margaret hadn't noticed, the leak in the upstairs bathroom, the crack in the foundation, the way the porch steps were starting to rot. Not major issues, he'd say, but they add up. Expensive repairs. Then Jessica started coming too. Margaret, this house is beautiful. But honey, it's a lot of work, and you deserve to relax. Enjoy your retirement. Not worry about plumbing and roof shingles. They brought Emily into it on a group video call. Thanksgiving weekend. You're far away. You don't see how hard this is for Mom. Emily felt the guilt immediately. Boston was 3,000 miles away. She hadn't visited since the funeral. Work was crazy. The kids had school. Mom, are you okay? Is the house too much? Margaret looked at her daughter's face on the screen. Her sweet Emily. Always worried about everyone else. I'm fine, dear. Your brother worries too much. I'm just thinking about safety, Em. What happens when Mom's alone and something goes wrong? And Emily, from 3,000 miles away, couldn't argue with that logic. Maybe just look at a few places, Mom? Just to see what's out there? Margaret felt the walls closing in. December brought the first nursing home tour. It's called Evergreen Estates, Jessica said brightly. Just 15 minutes from our house in Seattle. You could see the grandkids all the time. The facility was nice, modern, clean. A cheerful woman named Sandra showed them around. We have activities every day, movie nights, game nights, garden club, and our medical staff is excellent. 24-hour care if you need it. Margaret smiled politely, nodded in the right places. Let Sandra show her the dining hall, the common areas, the sample room. The room was small, studio apartment. Kitchenette. One window looking out at the parking lot. Not the garden where David had proposed. Not the kitchen where she'd taught her children to cook. Not the bedroom where she'd slept for 42 years. What do you think, Mom? Thomas asked as they walked to the car. It's very nice, but it's not my home, Jessica jumped in. It could be, though. Give it time. It's scary at first, but think about it. No more worrying about repairs. No more being alone. You'd have friends, activities. I have friends. In Portland. 3 hours away from us. That stung. Because it was true. Most of Margaret's close friends were David's age. Many had moved away. Others had died. Her social circle had shrunk to book club and church. Just think about it, Thomas said. That's all we ask. Margaret thought about it. And the more she thought, the more she felt like she was disappointing her son. January. The pressure increased. Thomas called twice a week. Always with concern, always with love. Mom, did you get the furnace serviced? Mom, the forecast says snow. Do you have someone to shovel? Mom, I'm worried about you. Jessica and I both are. And then came the incident. Margaret slipped on ice. Her own driveway. Didn't fall. Caught herself on the railing. Just a slip. But Thomas heard about it. You could have broken your hip. At your age, that's serious. That's life-threatening. I didn't fall, Thomas. I caught myself. This time. What about next time? The fear in his voice was real. Margaret heard it. And part of her, the part that loved her son, started to wonder if maybe he was right. Maybe she was being stubborn. Maybe she was risking her health because of pride. Maybe a good mother would make this easier on her children. February. Margaret agreed to visit Evergreen Estates again. This time, she let herself imagine it. Living there. Smaller space. Less to clean. People around. Less lonely. She could do this. For Thomas. For Emily. If I did this, she said quietly, sitting in Sandra's office. What happens to my house? Thomas and Jessica exchanged a glance. You'd sell it, Mom. Use the money to pay for Evergreen and invest the rest. You'd be set for life. And the furniture? My things? We'd help you sort through everything. Keep what fits in the new room. The rest? Jessica smiled gently. We'd figure it out. Together. Margaret signed the application that day. She told herself it was the right decision. She told herself Thomas knew best. She told herself David would understand. But that night, alone in the house on Laurel Street, Margaret cried. March 15th. Moving day. Evergreen Estates had an opening. Thomas had jumped on it immediately. These places fill up fast, Mom. We're lucky. Lucky. Margaret stood in the empty living room. The movers had taken everything that would fit in the studio apartment. Her bed, her favorite chair, some photos, some books. Everything else was going to storage. Or to Thomas and Jessica's house. Temporarily, they said. The house felt hollow. 42 years of life reduced to boxes. Ready, Mom? Thomas appeared in the doorway. No, she wasn't ready. She'd never be ready. But she nodded. Because what else could she do? Thomas looked up from the papers. Your half? The house money. Half is mine, half is yours, and Emily's. Eventually, Thomas and Jessica exchanged a look. Mom, this is all yours. We're not taking anything, but Margaret saw something in Jessica's eyes. Something that looked like a plan. May. Margaret tried to access her account. The investment account Thomas had set up. She wanted to give some money to Emily. Her daughter's birthday was coming up. I'm sorry, Mrs. Walsh, the bank clerk said. This account requires dual authorization. You and Thomas Walsh. Any withdrawal needs both signatures. But it's my money. According to our records, Thomas Walsh is your co-trustee. It's for your protection, Mrs. Walsh. Many families do this with elderly account holders. Elderly. Margaret felt the word like a slap. Evergreen Estates was exactly what Sandra had promised. Clean, safe. Activities every day. Margaret went to movie night. Tried the book club. Ate meals in the dining hall. She smiled when she was supposed to. Participated when appropriate. Made conversation with the other residents. But at night, in the small room with its single window facing the parking lot, Margaret felt something she hadn't felt in her entire life. Homeless. She wasn't home. She was existing. April. The house on Laurel Street sold. Thomas handled everything. He'd gotten power of attorney when Margaret moved. Just to make things easier, Mom. Legal stuff. The sale was quick. Desirable neighborhood, well-maintained property. Multiple offers. Final price, $875,000. Thomas and Jessica came to visit with the paperwork. After paying off the remaining property taxes and closing costs, you've got $840,000, Mom. We'll put it in an investment account. You're set for life. Margaret signed where Thomas indicated. Watched her home become numbers on paper. Where's my half going? She asked quietly. She called Thomas that night. Mom, it's just a safety measure. You know how scams target seniors. This way, no one can trick you into withdrawing money. I'm not senile, Thomas. I never said you were. But financial exploitation of the elderly is real. I'm protecting you. From what? Making my own decisions? The conversation ended badly. Thomas was hurt. Margaret was angry. Neither said what they really meant. What Thomas didn't say, the house money was already half gone. He and Jessica had made a down payment on a new house. Bigger, better neighborhood. 4 bedrooms, for the kids. They'd paid off Jessica's student loans, bought a new car, invested in Thomas's buddy's startup. The money wasn't stolen, it was borrowed. They'd pay it back before Margaret needed it. Probably. June. Margaret got suspicious. She asked to see the account statements. Thomas sent them, but the numbers didn't add up. 840,000 in April. Now it was 420,000. Market volatility, Thomas explained on the phone. Investments go up and down, Mom. That's normal. But Margaret had been married to an accountant for 43 years. She knew what normal looked like. This wasn't normal. July. Margaret made a phone call. Not to Thomas, not to Emily, to someone she should have called months ago. Robert Ashford, her attorney, David's friend. The man who'd drafted their will 30 years ago. Margaret, how are you? I heard about David. I'm so sorry. They talked for a few minutes. Condolences. Memories. Then Margaret got to the point. Robert, I need you to look at something. My son set up an investment account for me. The house money. But the statements don't make sense. Send them to me. Margaret sent them that afternoon. Robert called back the next morning. Margaret, I need you to come to my office. Can you get here? Is something wrong? Just come to my office. Today, if possible. The tone in his voice scared her. Robert's office was in downtown Portland, an hour by bus from Evergreen Estates. Margaret told the staff she was going to the doctor. She didn't want anyone calling Thomas. Robert's secretary showed her in immediately. Margaret, sit down. Robert looked older than she remembered, 70 now, semi-retired. But his eyes were sharp. He spread the account statements across his desk. Your son has been withdrawing money from your account. The words hung in the air. That's not possible. It requires both signatures. It does. And he's been signing your name. Margaret felt her stomach drop. That's forgery. Yes. How much? Robert slid a paper toward her. A summary he'd made. $420,000. Gone in 3 months. Down payment on a house, $180,000. Student loans paid, $65,000. New car, $55,000. Startup investment, $70,000. Personal expenses and transfers, $50,000. Margaret stared at the numbers. Her house, her life, reduced to Thomas's shopping list. Can we get it back? Her voice was barely a whisper. We can try. I'll need you to file a police report. Press charges for fraud and elder financial abuse. Sue for repayment. It'll be ugly. It'll be public. It'll destroy your relationship with your son. Margaret's hands shook. What if I don't? Then he keeps the money. You have $400,000 left. Enough to live on if you're careful. But your son has stolen half of your net worth. And if he's done it once, he might do it again. Emily. Does she know? I don't think so. The money was supposed to be split between them eventually, right? In your will? Margaret nodded. Then Emily's been stolen from too. She just doesn't know it yet. Margaret didn't go back to Evergreen Estates that day. She sat in Robert's office for 3 hours, crying, then angry, then crying again. How could he do this? I raised him. I gave him everything. Robert had seen this before. Too many times. Financial abuse by family members is more common than you think, especially when there's a spouse involved. Jessica pushed this, didn't she? Margaret thought about Jessica's enthusiasm for Evergreen, for selling the house, for protecting the money. Yes, classic pattern. Isolate the victim. Take control of assets. Drain the accounts. By the time anyone notices, the money's gone. What do I do, Robert? That's up to you. But whatever you decide, we need to act fast, before more disappears. Margaret looked at the account statements again. Her husband's life insurance, his pension, cashed out, the house they'd bought when Nixon was president. All of it gone into Thomas's pocket. She thought about her son. The boy who'd cried when his goldfish died. The teenager who'd mowed lawns to buy her flowers on Mother's Day. The man who'd held her hand at his father's funeral. Where was that person? When had he become this? File the police report, Margaret said quietly. All of it. Whatever it takes. Robert nodded. I'll make some calls. But Margaret, you need to know. Thomas will fight this. He'll say you're confused, senile, that you gave him permission. He has power of attorney. That's going to be his defense. Then we'll need proof that I'm not confused. We will. Medical evaluation, deposition, the works. Margaret stood up. Suddenly she felt stronger than she had in months. Good. Let's start now. The police report was filed on July 18th. Thomas got the call on July 19th. What the fuck, Mom? She'd never heard her son use that language with her. Ever. You stole from me, Thomas. I didn't steal anything. I was managing your money. You gave me power of attorney. To help me, not to help yourself. It was a loan, an investment. I was going to pay it back. With what money? Silence on the other end. You moved me into that place so you could sell my home. You took control of my accounts so you could drain them. You made me think I was weak so you could be strong. And you stole from your sister, too. Emily was supposed to inherit half of that house. She doesn't need... That's not your decision. For the first time in months, Margaret felt like herself. You stole from both of us. And now you're going to answer for it. Mom, please, think about the kids, your grandchildren. If I'm charged with elder fraud, I could go to jail. I could lose my job. The kids would... You should have thought about that before you forged my signature 400,000 times. She hung up. Jessica called an hour later. Crying. Begging. Margaret, please. Thomas made a mistake, but we can fix this. We'll set up a payment plan. We'll pay back every penny. Just drop the charges. No. You're going to destroy your son's life over money? He destroyed my life for money. The difference is I raised him. I loved him. I trusted him. What's his excuse? Jessica hung up without answering. Emily called that evening. Thomas had told her everything. She was crying. Mom, I'm so sorry. I should have visited more. I should have questioned things. I thought Thomas knew best. We both did, honey. What can I do? Just be my daughter. That's all I've ever needed. August. The case moved forward. Thomas hired a lawyer, argued that Margaret had given verbal permission, that she was confused, that this was all a misunderstanding. His lawyer deposed Margaret, tried to make her seem senile. Mrs. Walsh, how old are you? 68? And you're living in an assisted living facility, correct? Because my son manipulated me into going there so he could sell my house. You live there because you need assistance, because you had cognitive decline after your husband's death. Grief-induced dementia. Isn't that right? No. You slipped on ice. You forgot to service your furnace. You couldn't manage the house. Your son was helping you. My son was stealing from me. Margaret's lawyer, Robert, had prepared her for this. The attacks on her competency. The attempts to paint her as a confused old woman. But Margaret wasn't confused. She'd been tested. Medical evaluation. Cognitive assessment. Perfect. Scores. She was many things. Hurt, betrayed, angry. But confused? Never. September. The prosecutor built her case. The forged signatures. The withdrawals. The timeline showing the money disappeared right after Margaret gave Thomas power of attorney. Most damning. Text messages between Thomas and Jessica. She signed the POA. We're good to go. How much can we take without her noticing? She doesn't check the statements. My mom barely knows how to use online banking. God, this is so much easier than I thought. The messages were recovered from Jessica's phone. Cloud backup. She'd forgotten they existed. They told the whole story. October. The settlement offer came. Thomas's lawyer was desperate. The texts were devastating. A jury would convict in minutes. Your son will plead guilty to elder financial abuse. He'll repay the 400,000. He'll serve 2 years probation. No jail time if he complies with repayment schedule. And my power of attorney? Revoked. Permanently. He'll never have access to your accounts again. Margaret sat in Robert's office, the same office where this had started. What about the house? She asked quietly. What do you mean? Can I buy it back? Robert smiled. The new owners are investors. They're flipping it. It's not even on the market yet. But I can make some calls. 3 weeks later, Margaret stood on the porch of the house on Laurel Street. It looked different. New paint, updated kitchen, modern fixtures. But it was still her house. She could feel it. $420,000, Robert said, after the repairs and updates. That's what they want. Margaret had $400,000 left in her account. The rest would come from Thomas's repayment. It would take everything, but she'd be home. Make the offer. November 2024. 1 year after it started, Margaret moved back into the house on Laurel Street. Emily flew in to help. Together they unpacked the boxes that had been in Thomas's storage, the furniture, the photos, the memories. It feels different, Emily said. It is different, but it's still mine. Thomas was still paying restitution. $50,000 so far. Another $350 to go. His new house was in foreclosure. Jessica had filed for divorce. Margaret didn't feel good about that. But she didn't feel guilty either. She'd learned something in the past year, something she hadn't known at 68. You can love someone and still hold them accountable. You can forgive someone and still protect yourself. And you're never too old for a second act. December. Margaret got a letter. From Thomas. Not a legal document. A personal letter. Mom, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even know if I can forgive myself. Jessica and I are done. The house is gone. My job is hanging by a thread. I've lost everything. But the worst part is knowing I deserve it. I convinced myself I was helping you, that you couldn't handle the house, that I was doing you a favor. But the truth is, I was lying to myself. I saw dollar signs where I should have seen my mother. I don't know if there's a way back from this, but I want you to know. I'm getting help, therapy, financial counseling, whatever it takes to become someone you could be proud of again. I hope someday you can forgive me, but I understand if you can't. I love you. I'm sorry. Thomas. Margaret read the letter 3 times. Then she put it in a drawer. Maybe someday she'd answer it. Maybe someday Thomas would earn forgiveness. But not today. Today, she was planting roses in the garden. David's favorites. October blooms in December chill. Sometimes they survived. Sometimes they didn't. But you planted them anyway. Because that's what second acts are made of. Hope. Not guarantees. Margaret Walsh is 70 years old now. She still lives in the house on Laurel Street. The house she almost lost. The house she fought to keep. Thomas finished his restitution payments last month. Emily visits twice a year. The grandchildren send cards on holidays. It's not the family Margaret thought she'd have at 70, but it's the family she's got. And some days that's enough. Because this is her second act. Not the one she planned. Not the one she wanted. But the one she chose, and sometimes the best stories are the ones we never saw coming.